It's going to be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's going to be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
And the Ohio State Buckeyes are the first national champions of the playoff era.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to football.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to Football. And that Thursday night game just finished, and we almost thought we were going to be in for another crazy one, but thankfully the Giants put that thing away. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be, of course, previewing NFL Week 3 today. And we'll also be doing some college football Week 4 stuff with Randy there towards the end. And we're also going to be talking about, we're doing our first what to watch for this weekend segment. That can be a game, a player, whatever. We're going to try to end it on something nice and sweet there at the end. So, of course, I'm not doing this to myself. I'm your host, Sean Garmer, and with me today, my two co-hosts, Mr. Gary Vaughn.
Hey, everybody.
Mr. Randy Isbell.
You know, one of these weeks, Gary and I will just get together and decide that you're going to do it by yourself. Just one of these things.
Exactly. We just random. It'll be like 5 minutes before the show. We'll be like, hey, you know what? We're not feeling it. We'll listen, Sean.
I've done it by myself before, but that was basically a glorified soccer highlight show. So much easier to do than this.
Hey, we'll boost the ratings. You know, we'll have 2 new listens, and of course, we'll call in and maybe just to say hello.
Y'all would do that. I apparently heard other people use the calling their co-host lovely after I said it. So apparently that's not just me goofing up and not figuring. I couldn't figure out something better to say.
Oh.
So,
are you saying you don't really? Are you saying you don't really think we're lovely?
well, y'all, Randy kind of gave me a weird look last time, so I said it. So.
Hey, I felt attractive, so I'm okay with it.
All right, well, you know, maybe the Giants feel much more attracted to the league after their win tonight against the Redskins. I mean, it felt, as much as I tried to get myself not to say that, I wound up saying it. Damn it. I kept saying, okay, I'm going to say Washington the whole time, and I wound up saying the word anyway. But it just feels so weird. Like, you know, they're making this big deal about how it's, you know, it's supposedly offensive, and then every second it felt like Jim Nantz was saying Redskins. I was just like, okay, what are we trying to get at here? Anyway, so, you know, pretty much Eli Manning executing that game plan to perfection that they wanted to do, which seemed like just getting the ball out of Eli's hands really fast and trying to confuse Washington as much as they could, which did not look like the same team that played St. Louis on Sunday, which is just really weird how 1 week to another these teams can somehow look so much different depending on who they're playing. But for you, Randy, I mean, you know, we saw Kirk Cousins have some good moments. You know, he makes Jordan Reed sometimes look like he could be the best tight end in the league if he can stay healthy. And then other times he just was looking bad, and he made some bad throws trying to force it, and had some defenders jump routes and get interceptions on him. do you think that Kirk Cousins is the guy, or would Washington be better with RG3 right now?
No, I don't think Kirk Cousins is really the issue with Washington. I mean, yes, at times when you watch this game, you feel like RG3 would better be suited behind that offensive line just because he could run around and try to avoid all this contact. But Kirk Cousins has a decent game. I mean, 30 of 49, 316. Yes, he made a few mistakes, but he's getting no help. I mean, the running game can't decide. I mean, where'd Alfred Morris go? I mean, now you have this rookie Matt Jones who's carrying the ball mostly, and he's not getting anything. I mean, the stats get a little padded with that Chris Thompson run right at the end, kind of bolstering their rushing stats, but that was non-existent. You can definitely tell they're missing Deshaun Jackson. They're not throwing the ball down the field, so it's very, very close quarters. It's like the Jets in the early 2000s with Chad Pennington, where it's like you knew as long as you could stop defending after 15 yards, basically. So I think Kirk Cousins is still the guy, but it's just a rough game for Washington.
Well, Gary, does this tell you anything about the Giants? Does it make you feel like maybe they were just a little bit unlucky in those first two games where they lost the lead, or is this just the fact that they're playing Washington here?
We look at this game and we kind of think to ourselves, the Giants are talented. They just have kind of fallen short. But on the other hand, I think, honestly, when you talked about the first two games they played a Dallas team that they're always in tight with. No matter which team is good or the most amazing team, the other is going to help stay in that game because they just know each other so well. So I scratched that game. I don't even consider that into the factor. I looked at the way they hung with the Atlanta Falcons. That gives me a little idea that this team is scrappy and they can stick around. I'm not going to say I'm a believer. I'm going to say they're somewhere maybe above my expectations in preseason, where I kind of thought that, they're a good team but not great. I just, to me, still there's so much. There's so many holes on their defense still. There's still some issues there, but I think that they're going to win some surprising games this year. They're a scrappy group.
So, do you feel like Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin are a little bit vindicated here after they beat Washington, or is this just one of those Thursday night things and Washington was a bit, losing all these players like Randy said? Or obviously this division is wide open now.
Yeah.
With two teams 1-1, you got the Eagles 0-2. They could be 0-3 by the time we get to that game. Cowboys, I think, have a really good shot of maybe extending their lead. I mean, we know Atlanta's not the greatest when they go on the road.
Mm-hmm. You say vindicated, and I don't know if vindicated's the terminology I would use. I would use more, I feel like, accomplished, that they got one under their belt. I think they know the road ahead of them is not easy. They still got a hill to climb. And so I'm kind of curious to see how they climb this hill, and see where they're going to reach. Because, let's be honest, just like we've seen the Dallas Cowboys, even the Philadelphia Eagles, DeMarco Murray's already banged up with a hamstring. Injuries are going to happen. And I really feel like with this New York Giants team, they really can't afford any more injuries. I think they're an injury or two away from being a below 500 team that quick. I just think that they have talent now, but if they lose anybody, if Collins leaves, if anybody, on that offensive line especially, they've already tried to rebuild that thing, they could be in for disaster. So I think they're going to try to fight, but right now, I don't know how you can think about being just excited because you did come in 0-2. You've got to get above 500 to feel, happy and vindicated.
I think also, you have to look at, you just talked about if you look at their offense, let's put the defense. This is the things that I look at when I look at the Giants. Their defense is making plays. We saw it against the Cowboys. I didn't get to watch Randy's the one that watched the game against the Falcons. I didn't really get to watch, much of that to see anything on that defensive side. But in this game, again, making defensive plays. They were constantly in, which is something they didn't do against Dallas, obviously different offensive lines and all that, but they were constantly in Cousins' face. And then on offense, Victor Cruz comes back next week. Man, this offense looks ridiculous. You've got Ruben Randall, you've got Beckham, you got Cruz. Who are you going to defend? Rashad Jennings is doing okay. I mean, you still got Andre Williams back there. I mean, if you're the Giants, I think you're feeling good going into next week.
Yeah, I think they figured it out that they just need a bigger lead before they hit the fourth quarter. So I mean, they tried to blow this game too. They just had a big enough lead. But
if Washington would have got one of those onside kicks,
there would have been a whole different story. But just to kind of touch on that defense, from what I saw with Atlanta, listen, you can throw on them. They don't have the best secondary, but they've also been playing some stiff competition. Julio Jones and Des Bryant the first week, and before he got hurt, and but you can't run. They stopped the run. I mean, you go back and look at the stats in all three games. They're very stout there. And like you said, they get Victor Cruz next week, so they're going to be putting up points, throwing the ball all over the place. They have three decent runners, and they're a good team. You lose two games the way they did the first two. It's just nice to get a win under your belt here on Thursday and try to use the momentum there. I mean, they do go to Buffalo next week, which is going to be a difficult defense to try to score on, but that's going to be a great test for them.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm going to bring in Brandon Bisco being here for a little bit, since this is his Giants team that we're talking about. How do you feel about your team after this game?
I mean, I feel good that they got the win, and I feel good about them moving forward only because of how bad the NFC East is out, when it comes to the rest of the teams. No other team in the league, in the division, is really all that great. But as Randy was saying, they tried to blow this game as well, and if it wasn't for the fact that they were so far ahead, they could have very easily blown this game if they had the chance to. So I'm still not very confident in the Giants' defense. Yes, they got some pieces back this week with John Beeson coming back, but until they can get JPP back, which I have no idea when will be, probably not until like halfway through the season, it's going to be a tough road. But with how weak the NFC East is, if they can play the way they played today, and if their offense can keep them winning, then I think they have a chance of getting through this NFC East and making it to the playoffs.
What do you guys think on that? Gary, I know you were talking about it before.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Giants as definitely being a favorite as long as Philadelphia stays in the pit that they are. And I think
they will.
Yeah, and there's a lot of speculation. I'm still not, throwing them away. I don't think that they're as good as we all thought they were, but I'm not throwing them away just yet, 2 games in. But, I mean, I will say this. I think the Giants, like I said before, are very scrappy. I think tonight you did get a little bit of reality with the Washington Redskins and what they are, especially with Kirk Cousins. Just the fact of the matter of any kind of pressure or anything, he does okay, but not great. So you're not looking at an elite quarterback. You're looking at Sam Bradford in the same division that's not doing well with pressure. And Eli Manning does excellent with pressure. So they are definitely more of a contender than I thought they were.
Yeah, you look at that division, and Washington, I just don't think is very good. Philadelphia just hasn't got rolling yet. Whether they do or not is yet to be seen. And you have a Dallas team that, I mean, we'll find out a lot more come Sunday how they're going to do with even more injuries. Obviously Romo's out and Des Bryant's out. It looks like Jason Witten might not play. So all these injuries are building up over there. But, I mean, they could still pull out some good wins. But as far as the Giants go, listen, they've been in all 3 games. They've looked very competitive. They played 2 divisional opponents and a very good Atlanta team. And yes, they're 1-2, but it's not like they've shown us anything that makes you go, oh, they have no chance. So they need to get those victories rolling and get ahead of the game before Philadelphia figures out their issues and Dallas starts getting their stars back. But they are definitely contenders.
Well, the thing about the Giants as compared to especially Philly and Dallas, while yes, both Dallas and Philly have won games, they have not looked good at all. Whereas both Philly and Dallas have gotten very lucky in their one win. Whereas the Giants have had leads for the vast majority of the game, I don't know if you guys watched the game, but they showed a graphic up on the screen saying that the Giants have been leading for half of the time of their games for the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. And they were only trailing for 13% of the game.
Right.
So that
that doesn't matter at all unless you close.
Oh, no, I agree with you. But as long as they figure out how to close and that defense figures out how to play, they are much more of a threat, I feel, than Philly or Dallas. Especially with Dallas's injuries, I don't trust Whedon. I honestly would put, I forget who they picked up now.
Matt Castle.
Yeah, Matt Castle. I would prefer Matt Castle over Whedon, but they're going to go with Whedon this week, apparently. That's what I've heard. So I don't trust Dallas, and, I mean, Philly fans, I mean, this is Philly, so what do you expect? But I've heard a lot of Philly fans already, after only week 2, calling for Chip Kelly's head. And if that does end up happening, that they continue to struggle and Chip Kelly does get the boot, then I don't see Philly doing much of anything. So, I mean, the Giants, while yes, they have a lot to prove and they have a lot to improve, they are the most reliable possibility coming out of this very weak NFC East division this year. So they basically have the division theirs to lose. So as long as they can play the way that they know they can play, they will win the division.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be clear. The Eagles are 0-2, but so they don't have that 1 win yet, and they won't this week either. So.
And Cowboys have 2 wins, but it just I mean, I don't think any of us are going to disagree with you that the people that the team that's in the best position right now is the Giants because they're going to have all their weapons coming. The Eagles are in a little bit disarray. They could be in worse, considering who they're playing. So, I'm not going to disagree with you there. Really quickly, what do you think about the Giants? Well, no, we have a show before then, so never mind. I for some reason I was going to have you already pick the game for next week, but I forgot we have 2 shows before then.
Yeah, we'll have a show before it. We'll have 2 shows before then because they're playing on Sunday next.
Right. So I'm gonna have to let you go because we're about to end talking about the Thursday games to start previewing Week 3. But thank you, man, for calling in.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and hopefully I'll be able to jump on the next show this week.
Should be able to.
Okay. I'll talk to you guys later then.
All right.
Later, Brandon.
See ya.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that wraps up our Thursday Night Football talk. Of course, next week it's another division battle, which is always interesting. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So should be a fun one to talk about next week. But before we get into talking about the Sunday and Monday night game, we've got to talk about fantasy football, guys. Again, I know I'm 1-1 in one league, 2-0 in another one, and 1-1 in the other one. So I'm doing okay, I guess. I'm worried about some of my players, but what are you looking? How do you think your teams are looking here, Gary? I guess namely our F2F league team. How do you feel about it this week?
Well, I feel pretty okay. The thing about this week in F2F League, I've got a lot of things to deal with. A lot of my players this week have changed. I've actually got, some guys that I'm not really sure that I trust. I'm excited about Le'Veon Bell. He is returning, and I'm so excited about that. That's going to definitely boost my team. I've got to deal with, DeAndre Hopkins. Hopefully he's going to play this week. Hopefully his injury doesn't keep him out. Matt Ryan's my quarterback, so I'm going to have to root for him, even though I'm not going to want to as a fan. And some other things, going on with my team. And Todd Gurley's another guy that I'm really hoping that they say something good about him. So looking at that, I'm excited about it. And also I just have to say this too. The fact of the matter is I did, decide not to change my kicker, which I would have because I was going to choose Josh Brown, who actually had a great game tonight, and I didn't get him I don't even know if he's available, but I was going to go look for him. So I still have Josh Tucker. Happy about that. But, man, that was a great, pretty much amazing game for a kicker, at least. 13 points is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty damn good for that, for a kicker, certainly. Do you... you're facing my dear friend Chris. Both of you guys are 0-2. You think you're going to get off the snide here?
Well, it's going to be a difficult one just because of the fact that, I think Chris's team is not so bad. I mean, he's got a pretty decent team over there, and, some of the issues I've had to deal with. He's got Aaron Rodgers. How can you go wrong with him? He had Odell Beckham Jr. have a pretty decent day. He had 13 points as well. But I feel pretty confident in my team. I mean, he's got some running backs that I don't know if I really trust. He's got a tight end that I'm not excited about. So, I right now on paper, I like my team better. But, you know how that works on fantasy football. Paper's paper.
Exactly. You think you got it made, and then all of a sudden, bam, you get hit with somebody you never thought was going to score some points. Well, Randy, you're 2-0. You're beating both of us here. You got to face another 2-0 team and Mr. Randall, who's got that Gronk and Brady combo. How are you feeling?
Yeah, you can just go ahead and mark me as a loss. He's got Brady and Gronk against Jacksonville, so there's 900 points right there. And I made the mistake and forgot to check this before the Thursday night game started, and forgot to put Eli in instead of Sam Bradford. So I don't think I'm going to get a lot of points there. And I've already talked about how Alfred Morris has disappeared, so he got me nothing. So it's already looking like a bad week, and I'm playing the best team in the league. So 2-1, here I come, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got to face Mr. Christopher Hale, who's been on here talking about his Raiders and everything. I mean, he's got Amari Cooper. I'm a little worried about that, because you never know. I mean, Joe Hayden might shut him down. He might not. He's also got Travis Benjamin, which it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be used the same way with McCown playing instead of Manziel, and he's got a few other guys. I feel a little bit confident, but he is 2-0 for a reason. So, I've got Peterson, and hopefully Alshon Jeffrey comes back. I don't know that he will. Jimmy Graham better do something. That's all I'm going to say. You better do something.
For sure.
So, we'll obviously be talking about that on the Monday night show. We'll get to tell you how we did in our fantasy. But let me tell you something about another type of fantasy that you can play. It's daily, weekly fantasy, where you get to basically choose the players that you want, and you go into these head-to-head leagues, and perhaps you can win some big-time money. I'm of course talking about DraftKings.com. The football season is only, it's now in week 3, but it already feels like the playoffs at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site, where millionaires are being crowned all season long. One-week fantasy at DraftKings means no season-long commitment. I already told you, you don't have to do what we did and draft all these players and have to deal with them. You get to basically play where you want, when you want, with the players that you want. And with $1 million up for grabs every week, every game is a big game, and every play matters. So 1st and 10 in the first quarter feels like 4th and goal with 1 second left, and a long touchdown run could mean more than just a victory. For your favorite team, it could mean you just turn your love of football into $1 million payday. This isn't fantasy usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code SPREAKER. That's SPREAKER to play for free for a shot at $1 million in this week's Millionaire Maker event. Enter Spreaker for free entry now. Only at DraftKings.com. Again, I need to remind you, that's only at DraftKings.com. And this is the last week we're doing DraftKings for a little while, so hopefully you guys will use that code, use it to your advantage this week, and maybe you'll hit us up with that hashtag F2F and let us know how you did if you wanted to use it, or just email us footballtofootballpod@gmail.com or whatever. You can just tell us any way you want to let us know you use that code, because I'm sure Spreaker would really appreciate it to know that people are listening and wanting to use that. Mm-hmm. But all right, so enough of all the advertising and talking about some fantasy. Let's talk about some real football going on here. We've got, again, the full slate. Last time, we're talking about the full slate for a long while. We got those bye weeks coming in next week. So that will be interesting to see how these teams go into those bye weeks. But our first game our game of the week, Game Pass game of the week that everybody's watching, of course, because it includes the Cowboys. It's Atlanta visiting Dallas. We know how Atlanta plays on the road. We know how Matt Ryan plays on the road. But, one of the things Dallas is going to have to worry about is, obviously, how do you slow down Julio Jones, who's just been a monster? Can you even slow him down? Gary, what do you think?
It's a difficult task. I mean, what we've seen out of Julio Jones is you can double team him all day long, and he's still going to get available and open and be ready to catch anything that they throw his way. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen him beat double coverage multiple times. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to definitely have to put a big guy on him and try to find ways to even slide a linebacker over his way. But it's not possible to shut this guy completely down. He's going to get his. You can slow him down a little bit, but trust me, he's not one of those guys you can just shut down.
No, and if you look at the stats, I mean, he has 22 receptions. The next highest player on the team is 8. So that's all they're going to right now, and it's because you can't stop the guy. Like Gary said, you can double cover him, whatever. There was a point, like I said on Monday's podcast, where it looked like he was just going to go up and try to knock the ball down. Ended up catching the ball because he's so good. So the only way you can slow him down is to have his flight get delayed somewhere. I mean, that's kind of it. So
which is not happening.
Yeah.
But, Randy, we have seen Atlanta's defense improve under Dan Quinn, and obviously we've seen the Cowboys defense too. This will be the last game that I think they have to do 2 more games without Greg Hardy and Rolando McClain and probably Randy Gregory as well. But whose defense do you think has the better game? Obviously, Dallas is going to be relying on theirs a lot more, considering who they have at quarterback. But could they make some plays to make Matt Ryan's day a pain in the butt? And maybe that opens it up for Dallas' offense to do some things to Atlanta's.
I mean, they're definitely going to have to stay in this game. But, I mean, I understand Atlanta has issues on the road and stuff, but this is indoors, and it'll feel a little bit more like a home game for them to me. So I think Atlanta's defense does do a little bit better just because the Dallas offense is so banged up. And I kind of want to see Atlanta's rushing attack really try to figure something out just to show me that this is more of a solid team. But to answer the question, I think the Atlanta defense does do a little bit better, probably get a couple turnovers in there. And really it's more because of the Atlanta offense than the Atlanta defense.
Gary, really quick, what are your thoughts?
And I wouldn't doubt it. I think both these defenses are going to be pretty equal. And I think, it could come down to what Randy's talking about, and that is turnovers. And Atlanta does have that at their fingertips because they do have Brandon Weeden in there who's going to be having to make the tough decisions where Matt Ryan is, he's one of the top quarterbacks in this league. So you've already got a disadvantage for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm sure those guys on the Falcons are licking their chops. So, to real quick, with the running game, I'm really curious to see this Falcons running game as well because is Tavon Coleman going to play? Is he putting a flap jacket on or is he not? Is it going to be Freeman's game? That's my question.
It looks like it's going to be Freeman's game, so that's a much different player you have to account for, and I think it's a little bit easier for the Dallas defense. Though running the ball has not been a problem for Dallas defensive stuff. It's been the passing game, which, speaking of that passing game, Gary, I'm sure we can all figure out who your fantasy star of the game is for this.
Yeah, Julio Jones for sure. I think that, even if this game is fast-paced or what, it's either Julio Jones getting 3 touchdowns or it's Julio Jones getting the most yards and a touchdown.
Well, who do you have winning the game, Randy?
Give me the better quarterback here. Give me Atlanta.
All right, Gary.
I'm going to go on a flyer here. I'm going to go with Dallas, and it's going to be a close, tight game. I think they're going to find a way to slow down Matt Ryan.
I thought I was going to be the one to pick the upset, but it's hard sometimes to do one of these where I think if Romo was here, I would definitely be able to pick the Cowboys, no question. But I do think there's something to be said for when Atlanta and we've seen it already, they don't play as well when they're not at home. And they aren't at home, even as much as you want to put it in a dome, and it's not, and it is, and whatever. I think you can do something to slow down a little bit on Julio Jones. If anything, the run's been a deal for Atlanta that's been able to help them open up things offensively. I think Dallas can shut that down defensively. The only thing I worry about is Brandon Weeden making mistakes that leads to the defense being on the field a lot more than they should. And that wears them down, and it makes it really a lot easier for Atlanta to be able to come in and just, bomb through. So, I'm going to pick Dallas, but it's one of these where, like Gary, it's really close. And I would not be surprised at all if it winds up where we lose in a heartbreaker or we lose in a blowout. But I think this is one of those games where I think we have the Saints after this. If we can get this game, playing New Orleans doesn't seem like such a difficult task. And then, things could get rolling and maybe you can lose the game here and it's not a big deal. But I think this one's a big game for the Cowboys. Get this game and I think you're feeling a lot better about your team without your star players right now.
Definitely. And 2 points real quick. Jeremy Mincey versus the left tackle Matthews of the Falcons is going to be a big key in this game. Watch that position because Matthews is not as skilled, and that's the blind side. We all know what happens there, and they're going to take advantage of that if they can. And the other thing is if we were doing college pick'ems like we do, and we do the point system, this would definitely be a 1-point game for me because I wouldn't trust it.
Oh, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on now to games where Randy or I will be individually looking at things. So we're going to start with Randy talking about his Jets at home against the Eagles.
Yes.
Now, we know what's going on with the Eagles turmoil-wise. People talking about Chip Kelly. Is it his fault? Is it Sam Bradford's? Is it who, is it because they're not using DeMarco Murray right, who may not play in this game? What can the Eagles do to change their offensive fortunes? You think, Randy?
How about give the offensive line some steroids or something? Because that's their issue. They can't stop anybody. Bradford has no time. Murray, by the time he has the ball, 3 people are in his face. So they got to figure out how to fix the offensive line first and foremost. And it's going to be very difficult against the Jets because, again, they have 3 amazing cornerbacks that are going to make it tough for you to find open receivers, and they love to use the pass rush. So it's going to be very difficult for Philadelphia to get things going this week. And like you said, DeMarco Murray may not play, which as a fantasy owner who owns DeMarco Murray, please sit him. I don't want to then just feel like I have to start him and then he gets 4 carries. Just sit him. I have Darren Sproles. I would love to know that he's going to get the majority of the carries, him and Ryan Matthews. So please, just go ahead and sit him.
Spoken like a true fantasy person.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I have 2 of those. I got that and Alshon Jeffrey both on the same team going. Just sit them both.
Ooh.
I don't even want to know.
That sucks.
Just come on. I don't want a Mike Evans situation where he starts and then never gets thrown the ball. Just sit him. So
That's
I
one of those things where I always go on the side of if he's already hurt, I just don't play him. A lot of times I have been burned before with that, but a lot of times they wind up just not doing anything in the game. Because
I got burned with Allen Robinson.
Look at T.Y. Hilton. I mean, just nothing. So,
but no, it's like I said, I don't think it's Chip Kelly. I don't think it's Sam Bradford. It's the offensive line, and they got to get it fixed, and it's going to be difficult against those Jets this week.
I was listening to another show, and I think people don't live in their own bubbles and only listen to their show or just think that they're the best thing going and don't listen to anything else. You only get better by listening to other people. And I was listening to the show and they were saying that it seemed like there was a guy on the Cowboys sideline that they had talked to that the Cowboys were sitting there yelling out to their defense what the Eagles were going to call, because they basically call a bunch of the same plays over and over and over, and they basically just try to outpace your defense to get, snap the ball and go. Well, it really leads me to believe that I think, it's not only Dallas, I think the whole league is starting to figure out Chip Kelly is not this great genius mind that everybody thinks he is. Is the Eagles' offense, the way Chip Kelly does it, is it overrated, do you think, Gary?
You know what, and I totally understand where you're coming from on this, and I don't know, overrated, maybe a slight bit. I just think that the way his system works.
Is Chip Kelly's genius overrated then?
I do agree with that. I mean, I think every coach in this league has a level of talent that got him in that position. I mean, there are a few coaches in this league that I think actually may have gotten a spot that maybe they shouldn't have, but a lot of these guys know what they're doing. They've been in the league for so long. And Chip Kelly, I think, he's got a good mind. I just think that the system he's got going now needs adjustments. Once you've already had a year in this league with that system, you've got to adjust it. And I don't think they've adjusted it enough. I think people are still they're probably looking at game film from last year and noticing some of the same aspects, some of the same things that Sanchez did, that they're just throwing Bradford in there, a new quarterback, and doing the same things. And so, film study is a big deal, and these players know exactly what the next play is because they've seen it on film. There's no change to what they do on the field. So I agree. I do think it's a little bit overrated.
Well, Randy, to you, I mean, do you think it's more about, and this is obviously, things that have been able to, do you think it's more about a chemistry thing? Do you think it's necessarily that they've tried to plug in way too many guys to these positions and had guys that knew the system well leave, and they just all can't mesh together to make it work right now?
I'm sure
these defenses are catching on.
I'm sure it's partially chemistry. I mean, you have a new quarterback in there that hasn't run a system like this since he was in college.
Backs too.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of moving pieces with this offense. I'm not trying to say Chip Kelly is a genius, but you got a lot of things going on, and you don't have a lot of time to reset your brain because he's trying to get plays off every 2 seconds. And like I said, it's the offensive line. They can't hold anybody, whether it's them not being in sync with the quarterback or with each other, or they don't have time to look at the defense and figure out exactly what kind of scheme they're running. So they're just going, I'm blocking the guy in front of me, screw the rest because that's all I know. I mean, that could really be the issue with them. It's not as much they're just not good. It's you need to give that offensive line 4 or 5 seconds to go, okay, there's the mic. This is the guy that's blitzing on this side. I'm blocking him. You're coming over, instead of just hike the ball. Okay, now what?
Right. So, looking at the game as a whole, your Jets defense has been ridiculously good, and the offense has sort of been, they're getting things going. I think Chris Ivory will have a much better game than the last one. Is it your Jets running away, or do you think this is a game here?
I think it's a little bit of a game. I am still kind of worried Chris Ivory's a little banged up, but Brandon Marshall brings a whole new aspect to the Jets offense that they haven't had in a good 15 years. Like, just that big, strong wide receiver that that you can just go to him when you're in trouble offensively. And on defense, I think they mesh really well with the Eagles. I mean, you put my foot to the fire. I think it's kind of like how the Jets-Colts game went, where the Jets seem like they're in control, but the score is close.
Well, Gary, what's your prediction here? And your fantasy player, obviously.
Looking at this game, I mean, I just feel like the Jets are just so more ready to go and play this game. I think the Eagles are still trying to figure things out. We just talked about that. So, I mean, I'm looking for the Jets to kind of have a dominant game here. Now, I'm not saying it's a 38-5 game or anything like crazy. Where maybe the Eagles get lucky and have a safety and a field goal. I think they're going to be closer. I feel like the Eagles will have a little success, but not enough. I think that what's going to happen here is Fitzpatrick's going to get the ball to Brandon Marshall. I think he's going to get the ball to Decker. I think they're going to go down the field, and I think Chris Ivory will have a bounce-back game here. I think not just because of the fact he's going to help balance that offense, but I think he's going to get a lot of junk time to, basically pound this game away and set it in stone for the Jets to win.
Yeah, I think the Jets pretty much got this game. I think between Ivory being able to get back to the Ivory we saw in Week 1, and I think I think the Eagles might make Fitzpatrick's day a little haywire, but we've seen that the teams can kind of just throw on the Eagles right now. Their defense doesn't seem like in sync. Byron Maxwell's not the guy that they paid for, seems like. So I think Brandon Marshall, like Randy said, is going to have a big game, and he's going to be a big reason why we're sitting here looking at the Jets being 3-0.
Exactly. Yeah, and the reason I chose Chris Ivory is once again for the start of this game for fantasy is because of the fact that I think he's going to get some junk time. I think Brandon Marshall is going to be great in this game, but I think Decker is going to steal some love too.
All right, let's move on to the first game. I got to sit here and cover the Chargers visiting Minnesota. I think one of the harder games to pick, much more even teams. Seems like it's been the theme for San Diego all throughout their season so far. Are the Vikings right now the only contenders for the Packers for the division, or do you think, obviously the Bears are in a big old mess right now, but do you think the Lions will bounce back and get themselves in contention, or do you think it's just between Minnesota and Green Bay here, Gary?
For me personally, especially with the way that Matthew Stafford took a beating this last week, it really makes me concerned about him. And I think that right now the Vikings do look better. They do look like they have more of a solid ground. But yeah, I think right now Detroit's still trying to figure things out, and the Vikings are definitely ahead of them. But Green Bay is, they're just heads above this entire division.
Well, Randy, when you're looking at it here for Adrian Peterson, he kind of came back to what we're used to seeing from him in the previous game. But we've seen San Diego, you can run on him a little bit, or at least we saw that with Amir Abdullah in that first week. Do you think Peterson has another really good game here, over under 100 yards and a touchdown and a half?
The case of the Chargers is kind of funny when you run on them. Just when you look at the stats so far, because like you said, Abdullah had the really good game the first week, and week 2 the Bengals ran on it, but it wasn't Jeremy Hill, it was Giovanni Bernard. So it kind of seems like if you're
it's those kind of runners, right? It's like the quick, fast ones.
It's more like if you're the backup, they just don't plan for you. So maybe Adrian Peterson has a tough day, but Jerick McKinnon goes nuts. That just kind of seems to be the MO. But no, I think Minnesota has kind of started to get the feel of it, give the ball to Adrian Peterson, and then let Bridgewater kind of pick his targets here and there. So, yeah, I'm going to say over on both the 100 yards, and I think he gets 2 touchdowns.
All right, Gary, what do you quick here?
Yeah, I'm going over too. In fact, Adrian Peterson's my star of this game. I think Phillip Rivers is right there with him, but I can only pick one. So I'm going to throw Adrian Peterson's name in the hat as my guy because I feel like he really wants to have a bounce-back game.
I'll say under just because I think he's only getting 1 touchdown. So I think he gets 100 yards, but I don't think he gets over the 1 touchdown. So I'll say under for that. As far as picking, this is a tough one for me because San Diego, obviously, they've been able to move the ball. Melvin Gordon had a much better game in game 2. You still got Danny Woodhead as a factor as well. You got the receivers that, Phillip Rivers just kind of throws to whoever's around. Bridgewater's still young enough and coming. Can he be had by that defense? But I think being at home is a big factor. We saw this last week where I picked a lot of away teams and then freaking a lot of the home teams won. I'm going to go with the Vikings in this game. What are you saying, Gary?
I'm going with San Diego here. I like Phillip Rivers and the way he's able to get the ball downfield, and I just have a gut feeling. I'm going San Diego.
Yeah, super close game. Give us our second overtime of the year, but Minnesota wins it.
All right, fair enough. Randy, we're moving on to another game you got to talk about here or got to cover in depth. You got the Colts visiting the Tennessee Titans. Certainly a much easier matchup. This is what happened to them last year where they got into the division. That's when they started rolling. But, Andrew Luck had to be in a press conference and he had to shoulder the load as to why, the team is not doing well. He's putting it all on himself. So what is wrong with Andrew Luck?
Oh, jeez. What is wrong with Andrew Luck? He's played 2 amazing defenses. I guess that's what's wrong with Andrew Luck. And T.Y. Hilton's hurt, and him and Andre Johnson haven't really gotten things going. I really honestly feel like you're going to see a blowout in this game, and you're going to see just a coming out party with Andrew Luck and this offense. I think they're extremely tired of listening to people asking what's wrong with him. And Andrew Luck did exactly what he was supposed to as the leader of this team and said, hey, it's all on me. And now he's going to come out here with a healthier T.Y. Hilton and Moncrief and Johnson. And Frank Gore started to look pretty good against the Jets. And I'm sorry, Tennessee fans, but this isn't going to be close. It's going to be pretty brutal.
I think you can also say that perhaps his offensive line is really not blocking for him, and his receivers are, you kind of get, T.Y. Hilton wasn't a factor. He was hurt. Andre Johnson hasn't looked like himself, so you kind of had like Moncrief as one of the only guys you could really sit there and pay attention to. He got the touchdown, but like you said, it depends on the defenses. We know who they're playing defensively, but Marcus Mariota is the quarterback on the other side, and he's certainly looked pretty spry in the first two games. I mean, the Panthers kind of made him look more normal in that second game. He is playing the Colts defense, which really hasn't stopped anybody. Who has the better game, Gary? Andrew Luck or Marcus Mariota?
I think it's hands down Andrew Luck. I think that you're talking about experience versus just being honest, a rookie. Sure, that first game looked beautiful. We thought we were getting an all-pro immediately with Mariota, but it's just obvious that he's still a rookie. We had to come back down to earth and think about that. I'm looking at Andrew Luck being my star of this game because he's probably going to get 4 to 5 touchdowns. I'm going to go on 4, and I think Mariota is probably going to get maybe 2 at the most if he does get that many.
I think Mariota getting 2 is a pretty safe bet. I would say that I think the Titans, if they can use their combo running game that they kind of figured out in the last game, much better, where Dexter McCluster is featured more. That's kind of like the Giovanni Bernard or the Abdullah or whatever. I think you can punch that Colts defense in the mouth a little bit and open it up for the Tennessee Titans receivers and tight ends that can kind of do some damage. So I think it's going to be an even game, but I think I'll say it's even at first, and then the Colts eventually pull away, and you see the blowout that I think Randy's talking about. I don't know that it's immediate, especially with Tennessee being at home here. I think Randy pretty much gave you what he's thinking. Gary, you have a thought on this really quick?
Yeah, just for me personally, I think the Colts will be overwhelming. They have an emotional battle here to win, and they're excited about getting in this game and getting a W. So I think they will definitely get it.
All right, let's move it to Cleveland, where Oakland is visiting here, and I've got to cover this game. But man, Cleveland hit us all with what we thought would happen, but we were hoping. I think it didn't, just from what happened last weekend. Just because we can't deny that Manziel is an exciting player to watch for positive and negative reasons. But Gary, did Cleveland do the right thing going back to Josh McCown here?
No, and I don't even like Johnny Manziel. Let's just be honest. I've said it plenty of times. I've disliked him for the reasons of him being immature, and not because of his talent. His talent's yet to be seen. But from what I'm getting from the people in Cleveland, from what I'm understanding, is he's a little bit different guy. I hope it's true. I hope he has definitely changed his mindset. And last week's game kind of showed you that this guy is very talented when he, can get his ducks in a row. So to me, why cut this guy short? Why? He's got the momentum. Keep his confidence. Let him go into this game. Maybe he can go in here and maybe win another big game for him. And then you've got a guy that's ready to play hard for you because he knows what he's doing and he's got confidence. Now that you're taking that confidence away because you're basically throwing in the other guy, you're sending a message that we don't trust you. And this guy's immediately better than you. So I don't think so.
But on the other end, you did pay McCown this money, even though he's much older, to come in and be the starting quarterback for your team. Is that kind of what they're thinking here, Randy? Like, this is the guy that that won the starting job. We kind of feel like we have to give it to him. Yeah,
listen, I don't think it's a trust issue with Manziel at all. I think it's, listen, you were the backup. You're still the backup. It wasn't like they benched McCown. McCown had an amazing drive against the Jets. I just looked it back up so I can get the numbers right. He He had 17 plays, 90 yards, and took almost 10 minutes before he did his little John Elway tilt-a-whirl fumble into the end zone. So it's not like he was playing bad against the Jets defense. So you give him the ball back. He's ready to go. You now know that you have a very viable backup ready to go, and you go from there. I mean, yes, I'm a little disappointed as far as a excitement standpoint because McCown doesn't jump off the page as this great quarterback, and I think the offense will be exactly like I just said, slow, methodical, long drives, trying to hold the ball. So, Sean, I'm sorry that you have to watch that. And I also kind of worry for anybody that owns Travis Benjamin because there's not the long throw feel from McCown. So I think his fantasy value drops. But I think it's the right move to go with McCown. He earned the job. He looked good. Give it back to him and see what you can do.
Yeah, my only argument is the future. We all know the Cleveland Browns aren't going to be Super Bowl champions unless some of us are turning around. And I just think that this team needs to get some confidence under John Manziel. I mean, you've already invested a big draft pick for this guy. The money that you pay the other guy, oh, great. Well, he'll be gone in a few years or maybe 2 years. But this is your future. This is what you want to build your franchise around.
Gary brings up a good point there. But I'm going to go in a different direction here, asking you, Gary, over/under 1.5 rushing touchdowns occur in this game between both teams because we saw Crowell score last week. Murray's kind of been out of it with the Raiders having to get in that shootout last week with the Ravens, and now with McCown back in, more focus on the running game than last week. The Raiders are probably going to try to run the ball, especially, if Joe Hayden can lock down Amari Cooper. Don't know if that's going to happen because it seems like Cooper is able to run routes a lot better than most rookie receivers can. So do you think we're getting over 1.5 rushing touchdowns here from both teams?
For me personally, yeah, I'm going over on it because of that fact. And in fact, Latavius Murray is one of my superstar of this week. He is definitely going to be a big factor in the Oakland Raiders offense. They're going to use him more, and simply because of the fact that they've used the passing game so heavily. They're going to come in here with a little bit different dynamic. And I think on the other side of the ball, too, Crowell's been doing a decent job. And McCown, just like Randy said, he's going to do, a short-handed, passing game. He's not going to pass, 50 yards downfield. He's going to be getting more of the 15-yard passes, and you're going to have to see, a slower-paced game, which means a running game is going to be involved.
Ready?
Yeah, I would have said over just if you put it at Cleveland. I think Corral gets a touchdown. I think Duke Johnson gets a touchdown. Josh McCown himself might get a touchdown because, listen, he can run. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but the guy has a little bit of mobility. So
Derek Carr runs too.
Yeah, so I'm just talking Cleveland. On the Oakland side too, again, Derek Carr can run. Latavius Murray will probably get a touchdown. So I think you're going to see a lot of
Marcel Reese, that dude does some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe this is too much of an easy question for me, but I think just sometimes, that running game here for both these teams gets overshadowed with what these, what the quarterbacks can do, especially when Manziel's in there. So, who's winning this game? It is at Cleveland.
Yeah, give me the Browns.
I'm going Raiders. I like their momentum.
I'm with you. I'm going to say Raiders. I think the Raiders give McCown some trouble, and maybe Cleveland rethinks their decision that they made. But who knows? Maybe even we get a Manziel sliding at some point during the game because, McCown didn't do that great or anything. But let's see how that plays out. It's going to be certainly interesting as it goes on here. So let's move on to the other. Well, we won't go into the other side of Ohio, but we are going close to Maryland for the Baltimore Ravens being visited by their rivals, the Cincinnati Bengals. Certainly a tale of two fortunes here, with the Bengals being 2-0 and the Ravens being 0-2. Desperation time occurring here for Baltimore against a divisional opponent. But now it is Cincinnati with these 2 wins and the way the team has looked. The favorites in the AFC North, or is that still Pittsburgh, or where are you going with this, Randy?
I would still give the favorites to Pittsburgh for now. I mean, yes, they are 1-1 compared to 2-0, but it really kind of, to me, comes down to this game. I want to see Cincinnati be able to do it against a divisional opponent on the road. If they could show that they have the muster to play in a tough environment like you will have to play in Baltimore, then to me, they become the favorites. But for now, it's still Pittsburgh for me.
Well, Gary, I'm going to ask you a question about tight ends, since both these tight ends now are seeming to be targets that are big for their quarterback, especially Tyler Eifert. And we saw Randy mention to us Crockett Gilmore having a big game last week. Which tight end has a better game, Crockett Gilmore or Tyler Eifert?
Ooh, that's a great question. When I have to figure these things out, I always go with a hot hand, and Eifert's just been so good, especially if you've had him in fantasy. And I think that as long as he continues his progress, which I think he will, I think Baltimore has a decent defense, but I think that they do have some holes in there that could contribute to Eifert having a decent day. Gilmore's great; he does a great job, and of course Flacco looks for him quite a bit. But I just see the touchdowns probably going more in favor of Eifert.
What do you think, Randy?
Nah, I said it last time. I think Crockett Gilmore is now the go-to guy in Flacco's eyes. He loves that guy. And I just wanted to say to all you assholes on my fantasy league that listened to this podcast and stole them before I could, bad form. I didn't
awesome.
get that guy. I have 4 fantasy leagues, and he was taken before me in every single one of the waiver wires.
Oh, yeah, I know. But, I love Randy's argument here. My only argument against that is we saw how much Flacco loved Pitta. And no matter what, I had him on every fantasy team I had, and Pitta had excellent games, and there was a lot of games that he didn't have anything, even though he was looked at. So.
Yeah, I have to agree with there. Not to mention Pitta had the injury bug.
Yeah, but I don't wish that upon Gilmore because I think this kid's awesome. I don't want him having those problems.
But at the end of the day, Gary, who wins this game?
For me, Cincinnati. I mean, it's going to be close. It's going to be nasty. This is not going to be an easy win for either team to try to earn. But I feel more for Cincinnati being the victors.
Well, considering this is a divisional game, it's sometimes it's who gives the team the punch in the mouth first. Or last, for that matter. Jeremy Hill's certainly that guy that could do it for the Bengals. I think you have him here as your fantasy star of the game. Why is that?
You could give it to, I just don't see the Baltimore Ravens having the better running game here. I think definitely that leans towards Cincinnati. I think this will be more of a passing attack at times, but I think Jeremy Hill is going to get those tough yards. I think he's also going to get some close, carries into the end zone. I may see this guy even getting maybe 45 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns, but to me that's important.
All right, Randy, who's winning for you?
Give me Baltimore in their home debut.
Man, this is a tough one because usually, the desperation mode teams, especially knowing that you're going to go down to 0-3, and I think there's only been 3 teams since 1990 that showed it on the Thursday Night Football game that have made the playoffs after being 0-3.
Yeah, it's 3 teams since 1990, and I think the last one was 95.
Yeah, I think that was the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. So, no, that was in 98. It was one. It's like the Lions, and I think it was the Chargers was the other one. I think it was the Lions, but whatever. I think I'm gonna want to pick in the Bengals though. It's hard for me the way they've been playing and the way sometimes Baltimore has looked like they don't have it. They're so weird though. Like again, we thought they didn't have an offense after week 1. They go into a big old shootout with Oakland, and then in this game, a divisional game, I don't think it's gonna be this shootout because it is a divisional game. And I think when I'm looking at exactly what Gary's point is, you have the running game, that's what's going to keep it close, and the defense, I'm going with Cincinnati's defense here to make the plays to stop Joe Flacco. So I'm going to go with the Bengals on that. Let's move on to, this is 3 weeks in a row I've had to sit here and cover Carolina. My luck. But they're playing a divisional opponent with New Orleans coming into town, and the big deal for New Orleans, even though he is throwing right now, Drew Brees is slated to be out. Again, he could be a game time decision to show up in the game, but the question that Randy has here for me is is New Orleans one of the worst 5 teams in the league when Drew Brees is out? Considering we have no idea who the hell their quarterback is, I would have to say if Drew Brees is out, I'd have to say yes. Do you agree with that, Randy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've shown they're almost one of the worst teams right now, even with Drew Brees. So you put Luke McCown in there, and it's just going to get worse. Again, with C.J. Spiller coming back, they're going to rely on the running game and stuff. So maybe that keeps them in this game a little bit, but it's not good.
Especially with how they were using Mark Ingram, where he was, catching passes, kind of like what we see Dunbar doing with the Cowboys. If they can get Ingram and Spiller doing that, I think that's a combination that's, dangerous going with Carolina. But again, Carolina's defense is no slouch, even though looks like they're not going to have Kuechly. It's one of those things where eventually Carolina's good enough, they're going to figure it out, and then it's going to leave New Orleans with some issues. But going to the other side with Carolina, I've talked about here a bunch of times how Cam Newton has just been everything for Carolina so far in these first 2 weeks. Fact or fiction, Gary, Cam Newton is the leading rusher for the 3rd straight week.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go fact. I think Cam Newton is going to be the leader. And, of course, I just think that the New Orleans being bad is going to help that.
Fair enough. That looks like that's your fantasy star of the game as well, Cam Newton.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Do we all have Carolina winning here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So let's move on to another game that looks like we're all going to know who we're picking here. Can Jacksonville even compete in this game, Gary?
No. No, that sounds arrogant, and it shouldn't be. Jacksonville is, once again, a young team, but I mean, my God, the train that is coming into their.
To be fair, we did see the Bills run on the Patriots. T.J. Yeldon has shown that he can. He's very capable. That offensive line has been blocking for him. Those receivers are not anything. I mean, there's some capable receivers that can run down the field. That if Bortles was given time to find them.
That's the big key. Is Bortles going to have time? And I just don't see it. The New England barely gave Tyrod Taylor any time to look for people. I just don't expect Bortles is going to have a better chance in this game. And they can run the ball, and New England will let them have the run of the game. The running game can totally go their way. They don't care. What they care about is making sure that they work offensively and keep Tom Brady in good shape, and they will do that. And it would be very hard for me to believe that Tom Brady is going to falter in this game. I think I'd pick, LeGarrette Blount just because he's coming back, and to be the fantasy star. But I changed that. You can scratch that off our paper. Tom Brady is going to be the star of this game.
So, the guy that seems like doesn't matter what happens to him. I think Randy talked about it last week, or on the Monday edition of Dion Lewis. Doesn't matter if he fumbles, if he does whatever, he always does something in the game. It's always pivotal. Do you think Dion Lewis, the 3rd straight game, scores a touchdown here? Randy?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if New England doesn't put out 50 points, they're not a good team. Not saying like Jacksonville's the worst team ever or whatever, but they're nothing compared to New England. To watch for Gronk to just dominate, Tom Brady to dominate. Jacksonville's going to get some junk time stuff. T.Y. Hilton probably score. I'm hoping Allen Robinson has a lot of junk time points, but they're not.
I hope T.Y. Hilton somehow switched teams.
Or whatever. The other initial dude. Yeldon, not Hilton. Jesus.
Yeldon, yeah.
It's okay. Lots of players to keep track of. So, New England?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a blowout? Really bad?
Yes.
It'll be nasty. It'll be boring by halftime.
I don't know, man. I think that, Jacksonville showed a little bit. I don't know that it's going to be a total blowout. I'll say, maybe a touchdown or something. I don't think it's going to be multiple touchdowns, but who knows? We could be totally right on that. So, Arian Foster supposedly does not have a timetable for his return. So it looked positive during the week, but maybe it looks a little bit less positive going in right now. Of course, we have several days to go before the actual game begins. Tampa Bay is visiting the Houston Texans here. Obviously, the 1-1 Tampa Bay against the 0-2 Houston Texans. If Arian Foster starts, does it matter who the QB is? Gary.
Well, not really. Arian Foster coming back is just going to depend on how healthy he really is, and it just doesn't matter though who's throwing the ball, because I think both these guys have had struggles. Honestly, let's just be honest about that.
All right, Randy. What's more likely? Jameis Winston throws more TDs, or he commits more turnovers in this game, considering that defensive front and the Texans do have some capable corners there.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think he has more turnovers in this game. Houston's defense hasn't been amazing this season, but they are very good. And, you have Mike Evans, who's still banged up, coming back. He just lost Austin Seferian-Jenkins for, 4 to 6 weeks. So he's losing some weapons. So, I think a young kid, he's going to try to force some things he shouldn't, and it's going to get him in some trouble. So I think he's going to throw more turnovers in this game than touchdowns.
This might be one of those games where we're talking about J.J. Watt having some big numbers again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I chose my start of the weekend. It was tough, man. Looking at this roster of both teams and figuring this out and what's going to happen, it was very difficult. And
especially with a slam dunk like DeAndre Hopkins, looks like he's having some issues there.
Exactly. See, that takes me, it broke my heart looking at that. I'm like, man, because, Vincent Jackson's my pick originally, and I will stick with that. I think that, he'll be the guy. If anybody gets any big yardage in this game, that's who I'm pointing at. But I will say this, if you're looking for the defense to pick, the Texans and J.J. Watt, they may have a pretty good day here.
Certainly, and I think, Gary's so serious about his fantasy stuff, man. He's talking about his heart getting broken when he has to sit there and really think about the player he wants to pick. Are the Texans' hearts going to get broken in this game and go down 0-3, or is Houston picking up a win at home? What do you think, Gary?
This is a difficult game for me to choose. It really is, because I could see both sides of the fence here. I think, Houston definitely has a shot here. And I'm just going to go by the game that I picked earlier this week, and my pick actually was, let's see here, I had the Texans, I guess. So, yeah, I'll go Texans.
I have Houston. What do you have, Randy?
Listen, Tampa Bay was able to beat New Orleans in New Orleans, but I don't think they're going to beat Houston. Give Houston their first win.
All right, Randy, here's another game you have to watch. Pittsburgh visiting St. Louis. And we saw what St. Louis did getting up for a divisional game against the Seahawks, something they always seem to do. This is another high-powered offense with a sort of suspect defense. So we thought of that with Washington, and they're apparently number one in total defense. They didn't look like it in the game against the Giants. But can St. Louis have another repeat home performance?
Well, they're definitely going to have to if they want to stay in this game. The Steelers' offense, to me, is the best in the game. And it's kind of like we talked about Julio Jones, where you're not going to stop them, but you just try to do your best to slow them down and keep up with them. But you get Nick Foles back at home. I believe Gurley's going to make his debut this week. So maybe their offense can get rolling. I think they can have a repeat performance as far as keeping it close. As far as winning the game, it's going to be difficult for them. Pittsburgh is running on all cylinders right now.
Well, certainly they're going to be sitting there possibly running on even more cylinders if you can even do that. With now a tandem backfield of Le'Veon Bell returning and DeAngelo Williams, we could certainly see DeAngelo Williams being the guy that catches passes out of the backfield now with these certainly more north-south hard runner and Le'Veon Bell. Bell's certainly going to have a big performance coming in his first game. I think he wants to, if there's any kind of rumors of DeAngelo Williams sort of taking over that spot, I think he wants to certainly stamp his spot as I'm the number one guy. Don't forget about me. 100 yards and a touch, over under, Gary.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think he wants to stamp this game and say, look, I'm Le'Veon Bell. Welcome back to the NFL. So, yeah, I'm excited about that, and I think he will have that kind of game.
So you're going to go over?
Yeah, I'm going over.
All right, Randy.
Yeah, I'll say over too. I think they try to run the ball in the second half.
I'll say over as well. And so you think Big Ben, even though San Luis' defense is pretty stout, they seem to. Washington ran the ball like crazy against them, which is going to be great for Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams, which could open things up for Big Ben. But you have him as your fantasy player of the game.
I'll give you a reason why. And the exact reason why is because I think that you're going to see Le'Veon Bell have success, but I think you're also going to see D'Angelo Williams kind of steal some things. I think Big Ben, though, he's going to have to be on his A game, and he's going to have to beat that pass rush. They're going to try to get to Big Ben, especially since they had such a bad week last week. But I expect them to, instead of maybe getting to a situation where they're running the ball in the end zone, expect at the 2-yard line for play-action pass touchdowns.
All right, so we're into the 4 o'clock game. San Francisco visiting Arizona, divisional game here. Do we see the San Francisco of Week 1, Randy?
No. I think, maybe offensively a little bit, just because Arizona's defense hasn't been that great, but I don't think they come out and surprise us like they did against Minnesota and really control the game completely. I think Arizona does that. I think Arizona's a far better team, and they've shown it both weeks. San Francisco had a good first week and struggled the second week. I think you see more of what they showed against the Steelers than they do against Minnesota.
To be fair, I think we have to look at the teams that Arizona's played as well, though. So, playing New Orleans defense and then Chicago, which got hit by losing both Alshon Jeffrey and Cutler. I mean, that's playing a depleted team, but that's not to take away anything from the greatness that has been the Cardinals. That being said, Gary, over under 2.5 touchdowns for Carson Palmer in this game. He's been on fire the first two games.
For 2 touchdowns, I'll go over. Anything higher, if you were going to say 4, I would definitely go under. 3, very close. I think they're going to get ahead early, and they're going to depend on the running game. But yeah, Palmer's going to have 2 touchdowns at least.
What do you think, Randy?
Oh, yeah, definitely over. I mean, you were talking about the Cardinals' opponents and, them being suspect. I'm sorry, I still think San Francisco is suspect. I think San Francisco falls right in that same category as the Saints right now and a depleted Chicago team. So I don't think Arizona has much trouble in this game.
Oh, I'm not saying that they have any trouble. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. See Arizona when they start playing a team that has a defense that's going to give them some trouble.
No, I totally understand there, and that's why I don't have them in the Super Bowl, but I love this team. I'm all in on them. But I agree. Give them a week. They play St. Louis in Week 4, Detroit Week 5. So those would be some really good tests for them.
So Gary, there's 2 Jay Browns on the Arizona Cardinals team. Which one is it that we're?
It's Josh Brown. That's the guy we're going to look at. Fitzgerald had an awesome game last week, and
but not Jerron Brown. You're talking about John Brown then.
Yeah.
No, there's 2 guys. That's all I'm asking.
Oh well, I mean, I'm talking about the second receiver, not the other guy.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he's definitely going to to me personally, Fitzgerald had a great week last week. Don't see that repeating. I think that Brown's going to have an excellent game here.
Cardinals, everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. All right. So we move on to. I have to cover the Arizona San Francisco game. Randy his last game is the Chicago Bears visiting the Seattle Seahawks. I wish I had a laugh track for this. Jimmy Clausen walking into a Cam Chancellor-led Seattle defense. Ouch.
Seahawks win. Lock of the week. Move on.
Yeah, but how much does Cam Chancellor returning change things for sure? Do you think this means my over and under is going to happen here? 3 turnovers or more for the Bears offense?
I think it was going to happen before Cam Chancellor came back. Listen, I am dreading this game as somebody that lives in the Pacific Northwest beyond anything because I know Seattle is going to blow them out of the water. I know it's not going to be pretty, and I know everyone around me is going to give all of the credit to Cam Chancellor when he deserves none of it. Listen.
If you don't know that, what if he's the one that gets all the interceptions or something?
But it doesn't matter. It's Jimmy Clausen. It's the Chicago Bears. Just because he makes a couple plays doesn't mean that he's back, so Seattle is fixed. They're playing a junk team in a home debut. Cam Chancellor could be sitting at home, and Seattle's going to win this game by 50. Listen, I give zero credit to a guy who wanted to stick up for his beliefs and get paid more money, fought over $1 million, and decided because his team was 0-2, it's like, all right, okay, I'll come back. I won't be greedy anymore. It just showed that he was selfish. He got nothing out of this except for his team started 0-2.
He's also sitting there looking at game checks he's not getting, too. Let's not forget that.
Well, he knew that when he first started this stuff, and just the fact that he's looking at his team going 0-2 and thinking it's his fault, it's a selfish reason, and I just know that people are going to give him all the credit when he should be getting all the blame.
All right, Gary, you have your fantasy star of the game as being Marshawn Lynch. Now, obviously, this is somebody that's big buddies with Cam Chancellor, somebody that I've heard, of course, the media loves to hype up everything, including Cam Chancellor coming back, but I've heard all this talk about Marshawn Lynch is now going to all of a sudden have this great game because his buddy Cam Chancellor is back, even though he plays on the other side of the team.
See, it started already.
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
Why is he your fantasy star of the game?
Because what Randy said, they're going to win by 50, and when you're already winning at halftime by 38, you might as well run the ball. So unless they decide to let him sit on the sidelines and give him Skittles and let the other guy run the ball, I
don't know that Marshawn Lynch's mom is going to like that too much.
Oh no, and every cup of Skittles will be 31. That's Chancellor's number, right? Chancellor's number, isn't it 31? Yeah, so there'll be 31 Skittles in each cup, and he'll get pretty fat by the end of this game, I think.
I mean, he's got I wonder how he balances that diet of constantly eating Skittles along with the other stuff that he has to eat. That's certainly interesting. 30-minute show I'd like to watch.
I didn't want those shoes. I want those shoes that he has. At the bottom of the shoes, they have Skittle colors. I love those shoes.
I can't stand Skittles myself. My daughter loves them, but I've never been a Skittles guy. Prediction, Seattle, everybody?
Chicago, no.
That's to say.
Swerve. No,
Yeah,
it's definitely Seattle.
Yeah, Vince
Seattle.
Russo did not take over this podcast.
No, Cam Chancellor did.
Yeah,
that's
oh, God.
Exactly what happened. So we've got the last 4 o'clock matchup is Buffalo visiting Miami. Miami's home debut. We've seen Tyrod Taylor go off. We've seen the Dolphins kind of, especially Tannehill with the passing game, and sort of bring it back to life in the second game there, even though they lost to Jacksonville. They really haven't had a running game in these first 2 games. Gary, does it really matter that Lamar Miller's has kind of been doing nothing? They have so many weapons on the receiving end, it doesn't matter?
I wouldn't say that it matters because, they're not winning games by, just throwing the ball, are they? That's not happening. I think it definitely matters, and they've got to fix the running game, whatever they can do. I mean, even if it's not with Lamar Miller, they need to do it with somebody. I just feel like it's affecting their game. I mean, sure, they've done great, getting the ball out there. Landry's looked good. Tannehill's had his sparks, here and there. But I don't think that not having the running game working is helping this team.
So who would you rather have, Randy, Ryan Tannehill or Tyrod Taylor?
Oh, jeez. Talk about 2 completely different style quarterbacks. Tyrod Taylor showed some amazing upside, so it makes me really want to say him. But just as kind of an old school fan of football, I like my quarterback to sit in the pocket and pick people apart. And I think if Tannehill could get a little bit more help in the rushing game and get a little bit more time in the pocket, I think he's exactly the kind of quarterback I usually lean towards. But man, Tyrod Taylor's been so good. It's tough to say Tannehill here, but I'm going to.
I don't think I need to ask Gary because I know he's not going to say Tannehill.
Yeah, no, it's Tyrod Taylor for me.
But you did have Tyrod Taylor as your fantasy star of the game here, and I definitely would agree with you because the big issue here in 2 games with the Dolphins is where's this defense that everybody said was going to be just fantastic? Now, they made Cousins look a little ordinary in that first game, but man, Jacksonville picked them apart, and we haven't heard anything from Ndamukong Suh in 2 games.
No, Dominican Sue is so concerned about trying to figure out how to get away with stepping on people that I think he's forgetting about, playing the game.
So, is that why you think Tyrod Taylor is going to do well here?
No, in all seriousness, Tyrod Taylor has been one of the top 5 fantasy players, and when it comes to quarterbacks. And so this kid shows that he's got great ability, not only just doing what he does, scramble here and there and get a pick up 10 yards here, 5 yards there. He's also got a great arm, and he's showcasing it, and I think this is the perfect game for him to do that. We'll see. It'll be my luck that I pick him as the star this week, and then Dominican Sue's going to wake up. But I just don't see it right now. I think Tyrod Taylor's going to have a pretty darn good day.
All right, Randy, who are you picking in this game?
Listen, I know it's Miami's home debut, and usually I want to go for the home team in divisional matchups, but you don't go up against a Rex Ryan defense being one-dimensional, so I have Buffalo winning this game.
I think definitely Buffalo is finally fair. I think they have a nice combination running the ball. You've also got Percy Harvin that can do things on that side. Tyrod Taylor runs it. Lots of things for Miami's defense to deal with, and that's going to cause problems for a defense that's already not seemingly clicking. I'm going to say Buffalo as well. You've got the tyrannical defense going on. They've already asking on Twitter how many sacks Buffalo's defense is going to get on Ryan Tannehill. And it's like overwhelming. I think like 87% are saying that it's going to be more than 3. So, you got that. And then you got the offense. Gary, which way are you leaning here?
Just to, represent the Canadian fans that love those Bills, I'll say that Bills A.
All right, so we all picked the Bills here. Go to Sunday Night Football. We're all watching this game. Denver Broncos going into Detroit, in which we still don't know Matthew Stafford's status. And that means it's a lot easier for Denver's defense, which has been ridiculous in the first 2 games, being able to pick apart whoever it is, even if it is Stafford, and kind of getting a lockdown on Calvin Johnson, which we've seen can be done rather easily, it seems like. But, that brings a question, though. Is Matthew Stafford a little overrated, considering they've had him for so long and he really can't get past? I mean, he got to the big game once. Maybe, got some help from the refs on that or whatever. But, is Matthew Stafford someone that Detroit really needs to be depending on still? Or should they be going in a different direction at this point, Gary?
That is very hard to say because Matthew Stafford has done such a great job leading the Detroit Lions. Yeah, sure, playoffs aren't there, the success when it comes to the playoffs, but during the regular season, this guy, year in and year out, has great games and, does pretty well for them. Yeah, I would almost point to other parts of the team that have let the Detroit Lions down compared to what Matthew Stafford has done, but right now, the way it looks, it just looks like he can't get past some of these issues. And I feel like, what we've seen from the past, he's dependent on the deep ball a lot. He's dependent on Calvin Johnson being the guy, always being there when Calvin Johnson is getting older. We're starting to come down to reality. So I don't know if he's way overrated, but, I don't think he's as good of a quarterback as he was once touted, at least right now. I don't even think he's in the top 15, maybe.
All right, I'm going to give that question over to you as well, Randy. But, we do have Peyton Manning still being the quarterback here of the Denver Broncos, and we have seen him, have issues throwing the ball and putting his offense in difficult situations, especially with the running game being sort of non-existent. And we already know if Matthew Stafford plays, he's going to be banged up. So who has the better game, Denver's defense I have them both, Detroit's defense or Denver's defense in this game? Who are you going with? And is Matthew Stafford overrated?
For the defensive question, I'll say Detroit has the better game simply because can C.J. Anderson really have 3 bad games in a row, though? I was going to say because Denver's kind of turned into...
At this point, does it matter? Ronnie Hillman's running fine.
Well, I don't... fine-ish, I guess. But I was going to say because Denver's been so one-dimensional, but I think C.J. Anderson has a breakout game at some point. But I'm going to say it's not here. I think Detroit has a better defense. I think, Peyton Manning likes to pick people apart, but Detroit is not going to allow it in this one. Yeah, I'll say the defense is a little bit better. As far as the Stafford question goes, maybe a little overrated, but I am soft on Matthew Stafford. I've been a big fan of him ever since he came into the league. I do think that he tends to rely on Calvin Johnson too much, and it's helped him at times, but lately it's hurt him. So I'd like for him to kind of be able to spread the ball out a little bit more. He also needs some help on the running game as well. But yeah, I give the slight edge to the Detroit defense, but this is going to be a great game.
I think this might be one of those games where Abdullah might show up again, considering how well Jamal Charles was able to get around that Denver defense. We shall see. But Gary, you have Peyton Manning as your star player.
Yeah, and this goes completely against what Randy was talking about because, the Detroit defense is, pretty stout. I mean, they're not going to give anything up just to do it. I'll go to a quick story. We saw this week where one of the Detroit Lions cornerbacks said that, he's a rookie, I think, said that he wants I'm getting all this crazy. Peyton Manning's autograph. He doesn't want Eli's, trust me. He wants Peyton's autograph after he intercepts the ball from him. So I think that's going to light a fire under Peyton. We all know that, he takes pride in himself and what he does, and I think he's purposely going to try to, burn this defense however he can. So why not? It's going to be a tough game. There's several people in this game that can have great games. I think Sean's right on cue. If you need a running back, Abdullah's going to have a pretty decent day here.
I think Gary's the one that wants Eli's autograph. So he's
sure, yeah. I got some toilet paper. I can go get him the autograph.
Hey, it's still his autograph, even on toilet paper. Then you can,
Yeah, well, we won't go further.
Somebody else can use it to do something else.
Yeah, stop there.
Yeah. So who's winning this game, guys? I got the Broncos.
I got Broncos too.
Give me the home team. Give me Detroit. Matt Prater with a game-winning field goal against his old team.
Ooh.
Nice one there, Randy. So last game, we got rematch of Super Bowl I, the also Super Bowl that Randy thinks we're going to get at
the preview
at the season. It won't be in Green Bay, though. It'll be San Francisco, so Kansas City might have more traveling fans to that game if they were to make it. Kansas City has to travel to Green Bay, though, a place where Aaron Rodgers has not lost very much. But talking about Aaron Rodgers, does the Chiefs' defense slow him down at all in this game, Randy?
Maybe a little bit. I don't think it's going to matter. This game being a Lambeau makes it very difficult. As you said, Aaron Rodgers is ridiculous at home. What has it been 9,000 years since he's thrown an interception there? I mean, they show it every time they're at home now, so it should be ingrained in my brain. But no, I mean, I think they slow him down a little bit, but I think Green Bay controls this game for the most part. I guess the bigger question I want to ask you guys, just kind of as a twist on what Sean has as our fact or fiction, which is more likely, Kansas City throwing a touchdown to a wide receiver or Aaron Rodgers throwing an interception at home in this game?
Shoot, they're both almost impossibilities, isn't it? I mean, it seems like Alex Smith just does not want to throw to one of his wide receivers. I mean, I'll say, man, the Chiefs' defenses is, they're pretty game. I'll say Aaron Rodgers is more likely to throw an interception.
Oof, tough question. I think I'm going to go with Sean in this one. I don't. It's hard. It is.
It just really seems like Alex Smith doesn't like his receivers.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, and I'm okay with that because I have Kelsey as my tight end on a lot of fantasy teams. So.
Randy, well, what do you say? It's your question there.
I would say more likely will be Kansas City throwing a touchdown to a wide receiver, but most likely neither will happen.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, I think we know for obvious reasons Aaron Rodgers is your fantasy player of the game, and he probably should be for the Green Bay every week until he proves he won't be. But who do you have winning this game? Does Kansas City come into Lambeau and maybe make a statement, or you think Green Bay is winning this hands down?
I think Green Bay rolls on like always. It'll be a closer game, so don't expect it to be, one of those where, it's going to be done by the third quarter. I think this could go be a nail biter, but I think Green Bay wins.
Green Bay wins, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, yes, I still believe in my Super Bowl pick. I'd believe it a little bit more if Kansas City didn't blow that game against Denver last week. But I think Green Bay at home is tough to beat. So give me the Packers.
All right, well, that does it for our... We hit our quota that we wanted to for this game, or for where we wanted to end the show, but so probably should have done it a little faster. But hey, we still are in the ballpark, but we still got to do one thing here. We got to get to some of these college picks. So here we go. All right, Randy, take it away.
All right, so before we get into college, Gary, I have to ask you, are you going to fix your confidence points this week?
I did. I've already done it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not complete, but I have done most part. So what I give you now will be pretty successful, I think.
Okay, so same thing as last week. I'm going to give you the game, give you a couple stats real quick. Give me your prediction. Confidence points if you have them, just quick hitting. Number 22, BYU at Michigan. BYU in the last 5 games, the result has been within 7 points in their last 5. Michigan, to me, it's all about the quarterback Ruddock. 3 touchdowns to 5 interceptions so far this season is difficult. For me, it's BYU, but with a confidence points of 2 because it is Michigan at home.
For me, it's Michigan with a confidence points of 10 because it is Michigan at home. I think Jim Harbaugh wants to keep the thing rolling. Certainly, so I'm going to say Michigan.
I've actually got Michigan, too, for a lot of the points that Sean said, and I believe, I don't know if I have a confidence for this one yet, but I will say it's in the 5 range. If I find it, I'll tell you.
All right, and number 20, Georgia Tech at Duke. Both teams coming off a loss, but to ranked opponents. You have Georgia Tech with that crazy triple option and 377 rushing yards per game going up against Duke, who gives up less than 100 yards per game on the ground. So Sean, which side of the running game do you believe in more?
Man, Duke burned me against Northwestern. I don't know that I want to pick them again. So I'm going with Georgia Tech on this one, even though they are going away to Duke. I have it as my number 9. So, yeah.
Gary?
Yeah, and by the way, I did have the Wolverines at my 1 point right now. So that's how confident I'm in that pick. And, of course, this game right here, the Georgia Tech, I did choose Georgia Tech, and this is actually my 10 spot.
There you go. That's my 8 spot. I have Georgia Tech as well. A little lesser-known matchup here, Northern Illinois at Boston College. Both played national championship contenders last week and kept it close. Northern Illinois, lost at Ohio State 13-20, while Boston College lost at home against Florida State 14-0. So with both teams being very big on defense, is this first one to 10, Sean?
Might be so. I think I've got Boston College in this at home. I have them as my number 8. I think Boston College definitely can put the hammer down on Northern Illinois, but who knows? Maybe it's the first 17.
Yeah,
possible.
This is a difficult game for me too. I mean, I'm looking at this. To me, this is a coin toss. I got Boston College, and I've got this as a 3-pointer.
Yeah, Boston College as well. Just the way Northern Illinois kept it right there with Ohio State has me very concerned, so I have it as my number 1. Just either way, if I get it right or wrong, it's not going to hurt me. So Tennessee at Florida. Tennessee's only loss was that double overtime game against Oklahoma that we all seemed to watch. And Florida kind of struggled, last 2 weeks against Kentucky and Eastern Carolina, pulled off the wins, but not 2 very difficult teams. They are at home, however. Is the swamp big enough for Florida to get the win over probably the better team in Tennessee, Gary?
You know what? It's going to be a difficult one. I think this is going to come down to the end. But right now, my confidence is in Tennessee. But you'll tell by my number 4 points in confidence is not great.
Sean?
I think I have it around there. I have it as my number 3. I have Florida continuing to be undefeated here and winning at home.
Yeah, Florida as well, just because of the swamp. I do, like I said, think Tennessee has the more talent, but SEC, when you're at home, it really is a big factor. But I also have it at 4, just here or there. Next up, number 3, TCU at Texas Tech. TCU dealing with more off-the-field issues, some more suspensions, just ugly. But last year they did beat Texas Tech 82-27. So do they get over some of these off-the-field issues and beat up Texas Tech again, Sean?
I think they win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer. I mean, Arkansas is not a team you want to judge on that, but I mean, last year Arkansas went in and beat down Texas Tech. Texas Tech already, they beat Arkansas pretty well, pretty handily last week. Arkansas trying to make it close, but it really shouldn't have been. I think they can give TCU a run for their money on this one. I think TCU wins, but it's close. I have it as my number 1. Not too confident in it.
I'm pretty confident. I got TCU winning this game. I've got them at 8 points because I feel like they're pissed off, and they're going to make sure they make a statement.
Yeah, TCU seems to be rolling even with all this stuff. I have them as my number 9, but I totally understand where Sean's getting at. Anytime a college team goes on the road, you always are a little wary.
Yeah, and watch out. They'll steal your beer, too. So anybody in that area, and if you live in Lubbock, Texas, don't have your beer out that
night. Mississippi State at Auburn. Both teams have actually already played LSU and lost to them. Mississippi State earlier losing 19-21 at home, while Auburn got just destroyed at LSU 21-45. Not always the best marker is who's going to win the game between the two teams, but always interesting.
Auburn got destroyed so bad they're starting a new quarterback this week.
So there you go. Does that change things for you, Sean?
Man, sometimes you do get that new player bump or whatever, but man, I think Mississippi State's going to drop the hammer again on Auburn. I don't know that it's going to be a blowout, but I think Mississippi State, with Dak Prescott and everything, showing them how it's done. I think I got it as my number 5. Going to go with the Bulldogs here.
Gary?
Prescott is the man, and he's going to lead this team to victory, and so Mississippi State will definitely have the win here. My confidence is 9 points.
Not as confident as Gary, but I do have Mississippi State winning. I have them at 6. All right, guys. Number 24, Oklahoma State at Texas. Texas get the crazy bounce back. They are having statistically possibly the worst season they've had in defense in the last 10 years. And Oklahoma State is just putting all sorts of pressure on defense. 12 pressures per game, according to ESPN.com. Can Texas pull off the win at home, Gary?
They couldn't do it last week. I don't see them doing it this week. Oklahoma State's just going to be too much for them. I got 7 as my points.
I got them as 6, but Oklahoma State should win this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of you. I have it at 7 as well as Gary. So last week, it was kind of the spotlight was on the SEC with some of their big games. This week it's the Pac-12, and you'll see that with our last 3 games. You have number 9 UCLA at number 16 Arizona. To me, it's the battle of the halfbacks. You have Perkins for UCLA, for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wilson for Arizona, also over 400 yards, but 5 touchdowns. Rosen for UCLA already has 4 interceptions, though, and he needs to fix that. And Solomon is tied for second in the entire NCAA with 10 touchdowns. Which offense does better in this game, Sean?
I have UCLA, but I am not confident at all. Arizona could certainly pull up the offset at home. They're ranked for a reason, but I'm going to say the Bruins in a real close one. I got them as my number 2 confident.
Garrett?
I'll probably change my confidence points on this one as well. I looked at this one and why do I have it here? I have it 6 points, but right now I've got Arizona winning this one.
Yeah, I have Arizona winning it all. The interception this Rosen are throwing just have me really concerned, and Solomon's just been looking awesome. But I'm with Sean as far as the confidence goes. I have it as a 3. Number 18, Utah at number 13, Oregon. You know, we saw Utah beat Michigan earlier. Could they come out and beat Oregon, Gary?
Ooh, that's tough for me as well. That's why my confidence levels here is very low. I have them at 2 points, but I have Oregon winning.
Sean?
I have Oregon winning, but again, I'm not totally confident about it. Utah certainly has been one to pull upsets off before. They are undefeated, and they do have that, Michigan game there on their plate, as you said. So I think in a close one, Oregon, especially, I think their quarterback for Oregon's still kind of banged up a bit. So it's at home. Might be a little bit of a bigger score towards the end, but I think Oregon wins. I have them as my number 4 confidence.
No, Oregon's really good at home. I'm all in on them. Yes, it'll probably be a close game, and Utah will keep it interesting. But I have Oregon actually as my number 10 confidence. I don't think they let themselves lose this game, especially if they want to be a title contender. And then we have our final game, number 19, USC at your national champion, Arizona State Sun Devils. Right? Right, guys?
Yeah.
Let's look okay still. No? All right. Well, how about this? Your big stat that I have found for this game, the quarterback for USC, Kessler, just looks terrible when you pressure him. Just all sorts of mistakes. And Arizona State brings 5 or more rushers on 72% of opponent dropbacks. And Arizona State did beat USC at USC last year. Am I starting to convince you yet for this game, Sean?
Nope, I'm still going with USC. I know that they lost the game to Stanford that they probably shouldn't have if they wanted to do anything title-wise. But I'm going to say USC. I have it as my... I think I have it as my number 7 confidence.
Derek?
You know what? I've got to go with USC. You are kind of convincing me, but I have to stick with USC on this one, and I have them at a 5.
Yeah, I have it as a 5 as well, but I'm sticking with Arizona State. Listen, they had a very bad opening game, and yes, the 2 teams they've played since then are nobodies, but they are starting to get back into form. That's why it's always tough to kind of figure these teams out when they're playing a tough team in that first game because, there's no preseason in college football. This team's still very good. They're at home. I think they match up really well against USC, and I have Arizona State getting the win at home.
All right. Well, that does it for our college football talk. Really quickly, guys, what is one thing you're watching for? Whether it's a certain game you're going to be happily ready to watch, or a certain player that you think is going to go mad off, or just anything, an atmosphere that's going to be cool. What do you think here, Randy?
To me, with how crazy week 2 was, I will be looking for that one crazy result that we all just don't see coming. Whether it's Jacksonville beating New England or Chicago beating Seattle, of all things. I think there's going to be one game where we all just went, ha, 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 this team's going to blow them out, and they're going to lose. That's how the NFL season seems to be going. So that's what I'll be looking for, is that one major upset this week.
The one thing that I'll be looking for this week is Brigham Young. We talked about playing the Michigan Wolverines. Looking at that game, I'm very curious to see what happens. We've seen that Tanner kid, just completely be a miracle worker. He didn't do it last week, but it makes me wonder if he can pull off an upset here. Not really an upset, but, just really make the Wolverine fans mad. So that's one game I'm going to kind of pencil in to watch.
I hate to be a homer here, but I think certainly getting to watch that first game for Brandon Whedon at home against the Falcons is certainly something. That's why we have it as our game of the week. It's going to be really interesting to see where the Cowboys are when that game ends, and if Gary and I and other Cowboys fans and the whole league is going to have confidence about the Cowboys coming in. If they get trounced, I think we're going to be starting to worry a little bit. And certainly Brandon Whedon will be worrying about his job, and it doesn't give me any more confidence that Matt Castle will be stepping into that either. So, yeah, I think it's a big game, and also for Atlanta too. I'm sure they don't want to go down 1-2. So,
yeah.
All right. well, that does it for this week, or not this week, but certainly this week in previews anyway. We'll be back on Monday night. That's Tuesday morning for you people that don't listen live, doing something else after the Monday night game. But thank you as always for listening. We always appreciate it. Like to see that those numbers are continuing to at least stay steady, if not go up with every show. So it means that you guys are enjoying it, and we are enjoying spending our time. I mean, we're spending a lot of our time doing this for you. So hopefully, you will not only, it'd be nice if you could rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher or wherever else you can do that on. That we are available pretty much anywhere there are podcasts, I'm sure. But the bigger thing is for you to hit that subscribe button. And if you don't want to hit, if you like, obviously I know a lot of you are crossing over from the wrestling show that we're about to do in just a little bit here. If you like both those shows, and that way you don't have to have two things on your podcast list, you can just go find the W2M network deal. And you can find that on iTunes and Stitcher and Satchel and a few other places. I still have to go put it on the other things right now, but on the two big ones, you can find it. You just hit subscribe, and you get all of our shows in one. That includes the video game podcast as well. So, hit that, and it would be great for us because it, in some form or fashion, we'll be able to find out that you guys are loving the show. So, and if you want to tell us even more about how much you're loving the show, you can leave us a comment there on the speaker page. You can email us, futboltofootballpod at gmail.com, or you can, write that review or do whatever you'd like. But we will be also doing a special here pretty soon, probably within the next week or two, on the Major League Baseball playoff preview. So my buddy Chris and probably Pac-Man and maybe another person will come in and get to talk about baseball along with Randy, and Gary and I will make some picks and act like we know something. So that'll be fun. But Randy, really quick, you got a awesome video game podcast that you do as well. Why don't you give people a little shout out about it?
Yeah, if you're like me and my buddy, where you sit there and you play a bunch of games but you never finish them, and then you go, I'll get back to it, and then 5 years go by and you go, I never did finish that game. Check out backlogbusting.com. That's where Wes and I work through our backlog and talk about some of the games that we just have kind of missed over the years. Our next podcast comes out on Tuesday, where we talk about Valiant Hearts, an indie game called Freedom Planet, and Fallout 3.
Sweet. Some pretty big games there to talk about, especially that Fallout 3, getting ready for that Fallout 4 to come out. So we just did a special video game podcast as well a couple days ago, Mark and I. So if you like that co-op multi, go find it and listen to it. We talked about those game delays that have been happening, some Nintendo patents coming out, and a few other things as well. So yeah, well, if you're still listening on, Gary and I will see you on the wrestling podcast here in a little bit. If not, we'll be back on Monday night. Later, everybody.